What up everyone, Jubilife here, and this project ended up taking a lot longer than I expected. Anyway, about a month ago I made a video showing off sizes of different Pokemon Legends Arceus, the alphas, these giant, larger-than-life Pokemon that were introduced in this game. I went through the very incredible task of actually getting every single one legitimately in my own copy. A video of that story is up on my channel. It was definitely a fun experience, and I know a lot of people talked about being interested in doing it themselves. Maybe they started it, whatever the case. I decided, since I not only did it, but I ended up having to put in some research and other things just to do it on my own, I'd put some more research and work and design this guide. This video here is, to my understanding, the best guide containing information on how to get every single alpha Pokemon in the best way possible for each individual species. Now, obviously, I put in a ton of work into this video. It was supposed to come out weeks ago, and more stuff kept getting added to my plate, so if you like this, if you want to see me try other challenges and make guides for them so you guys can do them on your own, or just whatever the case, let me know by liking this video and subscribing. Helps the channel a ton, and it would show me this is stuff you guys like to see. Now, before I jump into it proper, I need to break a few things down first so you guys kind of know the flow of how this video is going to work. For one, I'm breaking this down by the areas. There's 5 areas within the game, and there's different mechanics related to how to get the alpha Pokemon. That being the natural spawns, static encounters, mass outbreaks, massive mass outbreaks, and STDs. Space-time distortions, what else were you expecting? As they come up, I'll explain the mechanics to those who may be unfamiliar or maybe don't know all the details about that. And on top of that, I have it designed for those with new save files and returning save files. Say you've already played the game, it's been months, post-game, whatever. There isn't that much difference between the two, as it's very much just kind of, if you have that area, you can go there. It just may be more or less difficult depending on where you are in the game. Again, with all that said, I really don't want to drag this out more than it has to, because it's a lot. It's a lot of Pokemon, so I'm going to hop right into it. Now, Pokemon Legends Arceus has in total 242 Pokemon within it, 2 of which are optional for completion. On top of that, 18 of the 242 are legendary mythical Pokemon encounters, aka they're the same for every file as their pre-made Pokemon that will always show up depending on if you've completed the challenge, if you've just gotten to that area, whatever, requirements are needed for that Pokemon to spawn, but they're always the same. There isn't variation like the rest of the Pokemon, which is why they can be alphas. That being said, that puts our total to 224 Pokemon we have to hunt down if we want our complete alpha dex. Now, throughout the game, if you have a fresh save, there are 4 alpha Pokemon that are, required within the story. You will interact with them throughout the story, and they are catchable. That being the early Alpha Kricketune before you get Weirdeer, and the 3 trial alphas right before you do your challenge against the Lake Trio. That being Guja, Overqwil, and Zoroark. These are all static encounters and, again, can be caught. The only thing is, Kricketune and Gudra have other static encounters just in the overworld, but Zoroark and Overqwil do not. So unless you evolve them, or do some of the other methods I'll get into later, you can't get these alphas naturally. So if you have the opportunity, I would recommend trying to catch them. They are a bit difficult, especially at this part of the game, but I would recommend those 2, and the other 2 if you can, of course. But that isn't necessarily a requirement to go forward. It is just, if you have a new save, it helps out the challenge. Saves a couple minutes. Now, from this point on, at any point in the game, you can kind of achieve these Pokemon. You just need the proper area unlocked and the items to do so. I do recommend reaching post-game for the rest of this challenge, as it will make it all easier having everything unlocked. But you can technically do this whenever you want. On top of that, you'll definitely encounter a ton of natural alpha Pokemon of some of the common Pokemon or some of the rare ones, as there's a chance every time Pokemon spawns for them to be alpha. For those who don't know, how Pokemon spawn in Legends Arceus is pretty interesting. Obviously, there's a size factor in this game. There's a scale from, they're small to big. And there's a chance whenever a Pokemon spawns that they can be in alpha, the biggest possible size, above the actual scale itself. Now, this kind of depends on the Pokemon, about a 0.2% to a 2% chance. And again, it varies by species, but because of that, any randomly spawning Pokemon has a chance to be alpha. So that's why I'm recommending doing this later during post-game, because you'll definitely encounter some just throughout the time you take to beat the game. If you want more info, a link to Cerebee's page on how alpha Pokemon work will be in the description. I'll have many references and resources throughout this video that I will be referencing and linking in the description, so I do recommend checking it out after this video, or at any point in this video, just to see where I'm getting my information from. If anything is not exactly correct or explained well, maybe these pages could help. Now, the first area in the game is the Obsidian Fieldlands. It has a good number of static encounters, and I've mentioned that multiple times before, but a static encounter is just a Pokemon that spawns naturally in the overworld whenever you load the map. These Pokemon are guaranteed to be alphas, so they're basically just a must in this challenge. And if there's a Pokemon that can evolve, you can reload the map by exiting to the main town and going back there, or waiting like 40 minutes, and then catch a duplicate, then evolve it. This basically saves a ton of time because now you're not trying to hunt for them naturally. Basically, every Pokemon has an option to be caught, as its specific form as an alpha, but that does take even more time than just getting a pre-evo and evolving it. So I will mention all the fixed spawns, but I will also call out whichever ones can be evolved into another Pokemon species for those maybe just kind of trying to think about it quickly in their head. But I will exclude any later static encounters that exist for some of these evolutions. So, for example, if, say, there's Pikachu as an alpha, and later on a Raichu can be caught, I will not mention Raichu in this section because that's coming up later. Just clarification, it'll make more sense as the video goes on. Anyway, for fixed spawns within the Obsidian Fieldlands, we have Bibarel, Staravia, which can evolve into Staraptor, Luxio, Rapidash, Golbat, Kricketune, Floatzel, Graveler, Stantler, which can evolve into Weirdeer, Snorlax, Parasect, Alakazam, Infernape, Lopunny, Cypher, who can become Cleavor or Scizor, Heracross, both Magikarp and Gyarados spawn here, so now evolving, and Blissey. Secondly, if you want more info on any of these Pokemon in particular, there's an article by Game 8. No clue what this website is, but they have a pretty good article with some good research that's been done. And they have levels and types and all of that for those who may want a specific one. But if the images that I've been showing you, which came from that article, isn't helping, I would also recommend Austin John Plays. He has videos on basically every aspect of Legends Arceus. A great content creator, loves his videos. But I will be linking the ones that are helpful for this challenge. So all of the static encounter videos will be listed in the description if you want a video reference to help you kind of find them specifically. Or if maybe you want to see his approach, whatever the case. Again, all in the description, all there for you guys. So that's 23 Pokemon down already. And another mechanic to go over, mass outbreaks. Before you select an area, a Pokemon icon may appear over that map. This means there's an outbreak occurring. This just means they spawn a ton in one specific location, just a guarantee spawn. There's no real benefit to having these outbreaks. There is a stronger version that we'll get to later on, but if you're doing the standard outbreaks, there is various save scumming methods that guarantee you can keep respawning the Pokemon and reloading them. This is usually used for shinies, but in our case, it can be used for alphas and or alpha shinies, which, not getting into that. And just so I'm not repeating dozens of Pokemon, I'm only going to be mentioning those not stated in static encounter segments. That means some Pokemon that are in the outbreak tables will not be mentioned, and if you want to see full outbreak list, there are links in the description, of course, but these are the ones that you're basically gonna want to go after, and the rest are gonna be available later on at some point, so you don't need to worry about them too much. Now for potential outbreaks here, you have Pikachu, Zubat, Paris, Psyduck, Abra, Kadabra, Ponyta, Mr. Mime, Pichu, Wurmple, Silcoon, Beautifly, Cascoon, Dustox, Chimchar, Monferno, Starly, Bidoof, Kricketot, Shinx, Weasel, Shellos, Baneri, and Mime Jr. Also, Happiny, Eevee, Combee, and Cherupi can have mass outbreaks here, but the next feature, they're not available, while everyone else previously mentioned is available in the massive mass outbreaks, or MMOs for short, because it's fun. Now, this was a post-game mechanic that was actually added post-launch in a free DLC, quote-unquote. This feature shows up as just a question mark. over an area, and this means multiple outbreaks are occurring. These outbreaks are special, and they have boosted odds for having a second wave, which could be an alpha wave of that Pokemon or that Pokemon's evolution. Basically, you can sort of guarantee rarer Pokemon as alphas, and it saves so much time for some of the harder Pokemon that we'll get into later. This is the mode I recommend grinding the most for, because this is probably where you'll get the majority of your alpha encounters will be from massive mass outbreaks. They're super helpful and made this challenge go from really annoying to annoying, kinda. Exclusive to these MMOs is Geodude, Spheal, Celio, Drifloon, Drifblim, Chatot, Munchlax, Zora, Zoroark, Weirdeer, and Cleavor. Now, the only weird thing about the MMOs is some of them have Pokemon from other areas, because this is, again, a post-game thing. So you might hear some Pokemon that we haven't actually mentioned yet, because this is, again, post-game. You'd have everything unlocked at this point. But I will still mention them in their relative segments, because organization. Again, links for all of these will be in the description if you want to see the full list of encounters. And the last mechanic to go over, and my just favorite, space-time distortions, or STDs. Now, I'm not going to try explaining all the ins and outs, so I recommend checking the links in the description. But long story short, every 5 minutes, there's a chance in whatever area you're in for a space-time distortion to spawn. Now, this isn't guaranteed until like 40 minutes pass. It's crazy. The timer is only moving, though, when your character isn't really doing anything interactive. Basically, no battling, grinding, no talking to NPCs, none of that. You can still walk, move, but besides that, your timer is not moving. So it is best to leave your game running, and then check back after every 5 minutes, or just whatever you want to end up doing. It is the worst part of the run if you're trying to get all these alphas. The good thing about Space-Time Distortions is not only are there really rare Pokemon that can spawn here, very strong Pokemon on that, but there are exclusives that you will need to get, and there's no other way of obtaining them. Now, for the Space-Time Distortions, I do recommend hunting Eevee. Eevee is in every single one, and spawns very frequently, so there's good odds of getting Eevee, which is usually a very hard spawn otherwise. On top of that, each one has exclusive evolutions if you are trying to do not try evolving them all. In this area, you get Sylveon and Leafeon. They can be found here. Again, all the Space-Time Distortions have different evolutions, so I will cover them each if you want them. But again, I do recommend hunting the EVs when you can. Definitely will help out in the long run, because grinding for EVs and just battle breaks normally, well, it could have its merits. It did assist me a ton when doing the challenge myself. Besides that, there's a singular exclusive, that being Weavile. If you're doing forms, the original Sneasel as well, but Weavile can only be attained here, so good luck. Since that's all of the features in this game that will help us boost our odds or finding Pokemon, I can just start going through the areas quickly and not have to explain each mechanic, so I'm not going to mention them all over again. So next up is the Crimson Mirelands. For static spawns, we have Raichu, Vespiquen, Roserade, Carnivine, Tangrowth, Whiscash, Toxicroak, Yanmega, Hippowdon, Pachirisu, Skuntank, Ursaring, by extent Ursaluna, Sliggoo, Onix, Rhyhorn, its Evo Rhydon, Lickilicky, Torterra, and Honchkrow. Within the outbreaks, you can find Ghastly, Haunter, Lickitung, Tangela, Sudowoodo, Yanma, Murkrow, Teddiursa, Roselia, Turtwig, Groddle, Kricketot, Bidoof, Stunky, Bonsly, Happiny, Hippopotas, Krogunk, Petalil, and Goomy. Geodude, Togepi, and Barboach are also in the outbreaks, but they're not in the massive mass outbreaks. On top of that, Paras and Psyduck also reappear in this section as well. Now, exclusive to the massive mass outbreaks, you have Cyndaquil, Quilava, Typhlosion, Unknown, Bronzor, Spiritomb, Skorupi, and Lilligant. Unknown and Spiritomb do technically have other ways, which you could argue may be more beneficial, but I do recommend doing this method for both of them. It is way easier, I can't stress that, way easier getting them as alphas here than the other ways. Now, lastly, the STD encounters for this area. Umbreon, Porygon, Porygon 2, and Porygon Z, which are the exclusives. And the Cyndaquil line can be entirely found here if the outbreaks haven't been too good for you. Next up, the Cobalt Coastlands. We have our first repeat static encounter, that being Gyarados, and the rest are new. So you have Mothim, Golduck, Empipom, Gastrodon, Quillfish, which evolves into Overquill, Chansey, Walrein, Octillery, Drapion, Purugly, Machoke, Dusknoir, Empoleon, Mantine, Ninetales, Tentacruel, Luminion. For the outbreaks, there's Vulpix, Growlithe, Machop, Tentacool, Magmar, Togepi, Apom, Magby, Spheal, Celio, Piplup, Primplup, Drifloon, Drifblim, Glameow, Happiny, Chatot, Skorupi, Finneon, Mantike, and Basculin. Only within this version of the outbreaks can you also find Remoraid, Duskull, and Dusclops. Within is also the repeats of Starly and Shellos for both, and Tangle and Weasel just for the normal outbreaks. For the MMOs, you have Clefairy, Psyduck, Geodude, Cleffa, Togetic, Riolu, Magmortar, Togekiss, and Overqwil. Lastly, the SCDs for this area include Flareon, Vaporeon, and the exclusive Magnemite, Magneton, and Magnezone. Within the Coordinate Highlands, Mothkin comes back as a repeat static. Then we have Luxray, Crobat, Golem, Goodra, Steelix, Rhyperior, Bronzong, Electivire, Gligar, Gliscor, Gabite, Probopass, Mismagius, and Clefable. We got a lot of repeats this time for the outbreaks. Here we got Geodude, Yanma, and Shinx. And then for the ones just in these and not in the MMOs, Zubat, Sudowoodo, Teddiursa, Badoo, Happiny, Hippopotas, and Croagunk. For the new ones, we have Voltorb, Cleffa, Mischievous, Elekid, Nosepass, Chingling, Stunky, Bronzong, Bonsly, Gible, and Rotom. And the only new one for just normal outbreaks is Roselia. MMOs, oh boy. Ponyta, Ghastly, Haunter, Gengar, Electrode, Mr. Mime, Duskull, Dusclops, Shinx, Bronzor, Mime Jr., Snover, Rowlet, Dartrix, and Decidueye. At this point, I don't even know if I'm properly tracking all the repeats. There's so many Pokemon. My god. Anyway, STDs, my favorite. Jolteon and the Rowlet line are both good here, but for exclusives, you have Cranidos, Rampardo, Shieldon, and Bastiodon. For those who have seen my video where I explain my personal experience with this challenge, you would know these 4 fossil Pokemon were the bane of my existence and the worst part of the challenge for me. Now that I can move on from those haunting memories, the Alabaster Icelands. Final area. Let's do this. No repeat statics, thank god. Just new ones. Gardevoir, Gallade, Machamp, Garchomp, Electabuzz, Chimecho, Sneasel, the Hisuian, which can obviously become Sneasler, Glalie, Frostlass, Swinub, Piloswine, Mamoswine, Abomasnote, and Lucario. God, so many Outbreak Pokemon for this one. Machop, Ghastly, Haunter, Lickitung, Eevee, which is not in the MMOs, Apom, Duskull, Dusclops, Bidoof, Drifloon, Chinglin, also not in the MMO, Bronzor, and Basculin, also not in the MMO. Those were just the repeats. For the final batch of new ones, Mischievous, Ralts, Kirlia, Snorunt, Riolu, Snover, Zora, Zoroark, Rufflet, Braviary, Bergmite, and Avalugg. And then the final batch of MMOs, Vulpix, Abra, Kadabra, Magmar, Magby, Baneri, Glameow, Oshawott, Duat, and Samurott. The Space-Time Distortions here have no exclusives, but Espeon, Glaceon, and Oshawott are very easy to come by here, and I would recommend hunting Oshawott and the Space-Time Distortions here, along with Espeon and Glaceon if you're having trouble getting extra EVs. If you've somehow managed to keep track of every Pokemon I've previously listed within the last 20 minutes, there's 3 Pokemon I did not mention a single time. Burmy, Wormadam, and Cherim. Cherupi was mentioned, but for those curious, these Pokemon are tree encounters. Basically, if you see a shaking tree within one of the maps, and you throw a Pokemon at it, there's a chance a Pokemon will then pop out for a battle. These Pokemon are exclusive to the trees, and have standard spawns across the board in terms of being alpha or shiny. Now, in every map, Burmy spawns, and it's probably the most common tree spawn, so you'll have a lot of chances for this. But for Cherupi and Cherim specifically, I do recommend the Coordinate Highlands. You probably have the most bang for your buck, basically, spawning in the map, going tree to tree, and seeing if you can get Cherupis to spawn. This is what I did when I was hunting Cherupi and Cherim. I didn't even bother with the outbreaks, but for the trees, I do recommend Coordinate Highlands. That's probably the best spot for them. And again, Burmy and Wormadam, you'll probably get naturally. All of that being said, this is the best way, to my knowledge, on how to get each and every alpha Pokemon with the best viable options per Pokemon. But that was a lot. I'm not gonna lie, it was so much. I literally scripted this video. And for those who don't realize, I literally never script my videos. I kind of just wing it. Now, the top link in the description, if you've checked it already, should be a link to a Google Sheets. I have made a list composed of every single Pokemon in the Legends Arceus decks organized by their dex number, with a checklist feature so you can organize which ones you've caught or still need to get. On top of that, I've listed every single method that I've brought up in this video on the side, organized by area as well, so you can look and see where to go and what to do per Pokemon. Obviously, this video will have all of those previously mentioned guides, all linked in the description if you find those helpful, on top of the spreadsheet, which you can, of course, download or make a personal copy to edit. I would have used Excel. I do prefer Excel, but figured more people would find it easier with some form of Google. And I've never made a public document like this before, so comment if there's any issues you have with it, or if there's something I need to fix, information, or some like glitches, whatever the case. I want to keep this up to date, and I would like to make this a very good, useful resource for anyone trying this challenge later on, and just kind of help out the whole community with this. Alright, about 5 days of researching, it's rewriting, scripting, and screw this. I'm done with the script. I'm so done with the script. There's a reason I don't do scripts. We're winging this part. Thank God. And thus concludes my Legends Arceus saga on YouTube. I have been talking about this game since I started YouTube, and it's kind of weird thinking I'm putting a nail in the coffin with this project, but that is it for my Legends Arceus videos. I don't think I'm ever going to talk about Legends Arceus again on this channel unless I do another challenge run or playthrough of some sort, or if maybe, I don't know, I go for like the best method to get like the marks in the Pokedex or something stupid like that. But as of now, this should be the final Legends Arceus video I do, and I'm very happy with how it's come out. Again, I want to make this guide, and I want this to be a useful resource for you, all of you, of course. I love this to be like the Pokemon community's go-to, but I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh yeah, this is the best way to do it. There's definitely other things you could do, but spread the word, I guess. Like the video again, subscribe. It would mean the world after everything I've done for this. But that being said, I'm gonna let you all go because there was just a lot of information being thrown left and right, and as someone who likes getting trivia, but not really, like, important information, I know I probably wouldn't even sit for this video unless I was trying this challenge. And I already did this challenge, so I'd have no use for this guide anyway. Have a lovely day, everyone.